Let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the MatchNet podcast. Today's a special episode for you guys who have international blessings. Let's welcome up my wife, Hitue. Wife, come on up. Just as evidence. Say hello. Just as evidence of how Japanese you are. How international we are. Okay, thank you. Thank you, woman. Goodbye. Go back to your life. She's just singing, practicing music downstairs. Don't worry, they'll hear you. Everyone will hear you. Okay, in all seriousness, guys, this episode I was going to title "How to Survive a Japanese Wife," but that was more for my own sense of humor, and a few other husbands that I know. So I'm making this episode as relevant as possible for brothers and sisters who have international matchings, but I'm going to focus primarily on y'all who have a Japanese or a international, for men that have a international spouse. And I received two messages today from husbands that are hardworking, value-driven, faith-driven men of God that are struggling in their blessing. Both of them happen to have a Japanese wife from Japan, I might add. And so I had a lot to say to these brothers. And I'm going to kind of break down in this episode our story, my story in particular, my journey of struggle and ego and acceptance and victory and happiness in the end, and children along the way. And I hope that it's just helpful perspective and maybe some practicals in there on just how to turn a marriage that is just different, especially regarding your expectations of what a woman should be like, what a wife should be like. I'm going to break that all down. I'm going to break down some barriers. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be straight with y'all. And so if you can't handle the truth, then this episode is not for you. But if you're ready to have some change in your life, if you're ready to take responsibility for your blessing, then this absolutely is the episode for you. So backstory. Blessed in marriage, we are celebrating our 15-year blessing anniversary this year, this October. I was blessed growing up in a culture of the United States of America. America has its benefits. It has some massive drawbacks if you are not exposed to other ways of thinking in other cultures. Even though my father's Japanese, my mother is Welsh, I grew up in the States. I grew up with the United States Hollywood films, the TV shows, the kind of nuanced culture of that kind of is intertwined into what we expect and believe is true in America, right? And so with the understanding of women, for example, I went to the blessing with my wife fully believing that I understood women because, well, I have a mother, which is one person, and I have watched a lot of films and read a lot of books and watched movies. Not a lot of books. Let me take that back. I have not read a lot of books. I read a lot of blogs from websites on how to be a good husband, right? But with the limited cultural experience and reality that American Western women are very fundamentally different from Japanese women. They're just very different in the way that they're brought up, the cultural expectations. They're different, all right? Of course, generally speaking, well, you can't generalize some women. Yeah, of course. But generally speaking, there's a massive difference between the East and the West. Let's just get that out of the way, all right? And so I went to this blessing, for example, thinking that all women like it when you hold their hand. All women like it when you give them flowers. All women like when you buy them chocolate. All women like it when you say, I love you. And so, to my surprise, on the blessing day itself, October 10th, 2010, just blessed in marriage with my wife, so happy, so elated from this experience to commit ourselves in front of Heavenly Parent and true parents. We're going out on a date, our first date as a blessed couple. We're going out to Seoul to eat some Korean fried chicken. Yangnam chicken, it's the best thing in the world. And on the way back, we're walking through the city together after our fried chicken. And I reach out to grab my wife's hand This is a blessing day. I reached out to grab her hand. This is a blessing day. This is what you do on your blessing day. And she, not even a second, lets me hold her hand. She pulls it away and she says, I don't want to do that. Okay. That's what she says. I don't want to do that. And my mind, my heart was like, my mind was blown. My heart was confused, not broken. I was confused because this is what you do. Let me know if you guys can resonate with this line of thinking. This is what we do. We're a blessed couple. This is what it's supposed to be like. This is what we're supposed to do. This is normal human behavior. And so for me, that was a starting point in a series of hundreds of accounts like this. And you could probably imagine, especially my friends who have a Japanese wife from Japan, all of the cultural understanding I had about women thrown out the window. That's one example of hundreds and hundreds throughout our blessing. Another one being physical touch. Another one being words of kindness, saying I love you. I grew up in a household where it was normal to say I love you, especially when you're long distance or you're saying goodbye to each other, right? Or you're going to bed. And if you say I love you, it's expected you say something like, yeah, me too, or I love you too. When the first time I said I love you, guess what she says? She says, okay. Like that. It's like, yes, I acknowledge, I receive your word of I love you, And these are examples. I know y'all have examples in your lives in international blessing. I'm sure you have dozens of examples that are just frustrating, humorous, a mix of different experiences and emotions, right? And so, but these experiences really highlight a fundamental difference that I wanted to talk about here between myself and my wife, and many times the difference between men and women. Let's say this, when we were first blessed, the focus of my priority in this relationship was often, for lack of a better word, externally focused, which means I prioritized things like physical touch, things like sex, things like speaking words. Even though it's a word, it's an external expression of a feeling, saying words of affirmation of I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, these types of words. And that is fundamentally how I express love and expected to receive love. Now, the difference is my wife grew up in a culture and family that never expressed any of the things that I wanted to receive. None. No physical touch, no kind words, no thank yous, no sorries. To this day, I can tell you there's one time my wife has ever said thank you to me, sincerely. Like a sincere thank you that meant, she said the thanks, like in a really lighthearted way. She'll say it in English. She's like, oh, thank you, like this, when I do something, or sometimes she'll say it sarcastically. But I remember one time that she said, actually, thank you for something I did. And it meant the world to me. Put a pin in that story for a second, all right? Because I know a lot of you will say, well, she should say thank you more, or she should. Let's talk about this for a second. All of the shoulds, all of the she should, he shouldn't, I should get this is correct. It's all ego. And as soon as you can see that and recognize it for what it is, then you'd be able to be happy and accept her and actually be free from your ego, because that's what it is. But that feeling of like, but she needs to, but I'm right. Guys, I freaking know what it's like. I know what it's like to tell my wife, but we should have more sex because that's what couples do. Honey, you should hold my hand because that's what couples do. You should. It's all ego. That's trying to say, I'm right and you're wrong. But I'm right and you're wrong. Tell me now, is that love? Is that love? And so the moment my relationship changed is the moment that my ego died. And I said, I don't care about being right. I care about being loving. That's it. It's all ego. Every time I receive these messages from men who are frustrated at their wives because they're saying, but she should do this, she needs to do this. Isn't it normal for a wife to do this? We should have more sex more. God, I've heard it all. It's all your ego talking. It's all your expectations of what you think, quote unquote, is normal based on your upbringing, your cultural understandings. And then I put that aside and I was like, oh, my wife is from a culture that doesn't comprehend physical touch. She can't understand it because she's never received it. She's never received a hug her entire life from her parents. And some of you are like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Welcome to the worldwide community of human beings where cultures exist, where people don't receive hugs, people don't say kind words. It's part of God's beautiful creation. And for us to sit in our third world countries and our ridiculous cultures and say, oh, but I saw in movies, I read in a book that women are supposed to be like that. BS. I'm calling BS. Who says that that's what love is? So let me tell you the story arc that has changed everything for me, that now I can say 15 years later with absolute confidence and look at you guys in the eyes and say, everything I hated about my wife, I love about her. Every single thing that I was frustrated at her about, that I condemned her for, that I was negative towards her about, every point, line by line, I can tell you that every single one I have turned into something that I love about her. She doesn't initiate touching. How can I turn that into appreciation? Because I value our touch that much more. Her physical affection is not cheap. And so I have accepted that I'm the one that initiates hugs. I'm the one that initiates hand holding. And I will tell her, hold my hand, give me a hug, let's hug. And I'll hug her. We're having sex tonight. And she'd be like, oh, I don't know. I'm gonna say, we're having sex tonight. All right, this is how we operate in a relationship. And I've accepted that she's not the initiator for this kind of physical touch. Of course, when men are like, oh, it would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice to have a woman that initiates? Yeah, of course. Don't you think every man thinks the same thing? And you can live in frustration your entire marriage like most men do and say, she should be like this until you guys die. And at that moment she's dead, you gotta be like, man, I wish I accepted her more. You can live like that. Or while you guys are still young and together, say, man, I'm just gonna accept that I'm the one that initiates. And that's what I have accepted. I initiate. And so how is this a beautiful thing that I've turned retroactively into something I love about her? Because I value her touch. I value her presence. I value her hugs. I value it so much so because it's not cheap. It's not given away willy-nilly to me or to other people. It's precious to me. I value it. I have turned, second point, that the fact that she doesn't say thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, or compliment me in any way, how have I actually turned that into something I love about her? How? How is that possible? Because I value more the silence. I value the acts of service. I value that she's present and she shows up for us and our family and for me no matter what. She has never run away. She's never escaped. She's never said, oh, this is too hard and run away. She shows up day in and day out, every hour of the day for our family. So what does that mean? That means she loves me. And I don't need cheap words to tell me that. I don't need her cheap words. Recently, just recently, I would say the last year or two, we'd have this conversation. I kind of reminded her kindly. I was like, honey, why don't you give me more appreciation? It would be nice to experience more appreciation from you. You know what she says? After more than 10 years of me kind of expressing this to her, she says, well, I always appreciate you. And my mind was blown. I have been expecting appreciation to look a certain way, to look like, thank you, I love you, I appreciate you for doing this. When in reality, she was saying in the background in silence, she was saying, I've always appreciated you. And so what she told me in that conversation recently, she said, I don't need to tell you that I appreciate you because I always appreciate you. She was like, why would I need to appreciate you like this? I always appreciate you. And of course I was like, honey, like, why didn't you tell me that like 10 years ago? Why have you been holding on to that, you know? Every single thing that I used to hate about her, I love about her. Third point, another point, let's go down the list. Hitoe is not an adventurous woman. Of course, growing up, I always wanted the adventurous type, like travel the world, camper vans type of stuff, adventurous, try new things, be sexually adventurous, this type of thing, right? But when I actually practiced the blessing, retroactively, how did I turn an unadventurous woman into, still she's unadventurous, but I appreciate her for that. Why? Because if she was adventurous, traveling the world, then she wouldn't be the person I appreciate that she is, which is someone that is stable, someone that is completely content and happy with being home with family and the kids, completely happy with just spending all day, every day, just in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, cooking food, doing homeschooling with our children, spending quality time with me, going on dates, not going out working a full-time job, not having this itch to travel the world and do extravagant activities and experiences. She isn't like that. And I value that because it brings stability and a sense of togetherness and family in our home, which I wouldn't trade for anything. I would never trade that with an overabundantly adventurous wife. Let's back up a second. These are all examples. I'm not saying that it's better for a woman to be a certain way, like my woman, although I think that she's a great woman. I'm not saying it's better for a woman to be unadventurous. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying these are examples of things that I have hated about her that caused so much friction and argument and discord in our relationship to the point that we were fighting a lot. And 15 years later, I can say with confidence here and in many other places that everything I hated about her, I love about her. That she doesn't initiate sex. Why can I appreciate that? Because now I can appreciate when we do make love. I can appreciate the simplicity of a sexual experience with her. Yeah? I can appreciate her touch. I can appreciate her words. I can appreciate her presence. So I'm saying this all because the fundamental advice that I will give to any couple that is struggling is that you will have to accept her someday when you guys are old and dying. You're going to have to accept her. She's going to pass on. You're going to pass on. There's going to be a point where you're going to have to say, you know what? I can't change her anymore. And so you can struggle your whole life to that moment, or you can just let that moment pass by you now and just say, I accept you because I let go of my ego. I let go of being right and I choose love over being right. That you can do now, today, after your first year of blessing, after your 10th year, after your 50th year of blessing, you can decide that. You don't have to wait your entire lives to be able to accept each other, because if you don't accept each other now, you're going to regret it because all of the moments that you had together would have been gone. All the moments you had to look at your spouse and appreciate them for God as God's daughter will be gone because you wouldn't let your ego go, because you wouldn't let your fallen nature go. Ego is another word for fallen nature. If you're confused by the term ego, it's your fallen nature. It's that voice in your head. It's the satanic parts of you that aren't part of you. And when I say identify your ego, that's the moment you can let it go. But sometimes when I'm talking to men, they don't even see they have an ego because all they're saying is, but she should change. And I know you're listening to this and you're saying, but I'm right. But isn't it better that she's like this? Sure, but that's not your blessing. Your blessing is your blessing and you've already committed to her. You have already committed to her for eternity. So what's the point in trying to change her? You've already committed to this for life. So what's the point of changing her? You would enjoy it so much more if you could just look at her and be like, man, I appreciate you for who you are. That's acceptance. It's not tolerance, my friends. I know you're going to say, oh, but yeah, people should grow. Of course. You need to grow. If she has problems in her life, if she's depressed or she's addicted to her phone or whatever it is, if she's angry, yeah, you can encourage her to grow, but also you can accept her. That's what a good husband does. It's not tolerance. Tolerance is to accept somebody and just to be okay with how they are and being selfish and all that. Acceptance means to look at someone as God does and say, I accept you for who you are right now. And I encourage you and I empower you to grow because I see the potential in you. Both of you guys can do that for each other. She will do that for you and you do that for her. You can make requests, not demands. Let me tell you the difference between a request and a demand. A request is, honey, I would like you to do this. And a demand can sound the same, honey, I'd like you to be like this. But you won't know if it's a request or a demand until you don't get what you want. And as soon as you don't get what you want, if you respond with anger, frustration, contempt towards her, guess what? It was not a request, it was a demand. You were not accepting her. You were tolerating an intolerable existence that's based not in love, but in ego, and you being right and her being wrong. And you could do that until oblivion if you want. But love begins when your ego dies. An accepting, loving relationship begins when you decide that I don't care who's right, I just care about being a loving person. You can do that. If you have children, for example, or you're going to have children, which I God to hope you do, a good parent does not just tolerate everything, every misbehavior, and say, oh, they're growing, it's okay. A good parent will accept fully that their child is in a growing period, is learning, and they will empower them, encourage them to grow, to expand their capacity as a child, as a person, as a human. It's very different from tolerance and acceptance. Okay? So get this into your mind, my friends. You absolutely can do this. It takes one decision to just identify that you've been egotistical, trying to change her, trying to manipulate her to be according to what you believe is best. But if you did what's best for you, guess what? Why don't you just marry someone exactly like you? Huh? Marry someone exactly like you and you would never have any of the problems. Marry someone that's going to do everything that you want for you, and you wouldn't have any of these problems. And guess what? You have defeated the purpose of the blessing. You've defeated the purpose of man and woman coming together to become more and more every day like God, to be male and female, masculine and feminine, to reflect God's true nature of true masculinity and femininity in your couple day by day, not in an instant, day by day, getting better and better and stronger, having children, raising those children in that environment, bringing that into your community and world, into your lineage. And if you're going to marry someone that's exactly how you want them to be, guess what? You're defeating the purpose of the blessing because you're not growing. You're choosing happiness over growth. The purpose of the blessing is not happiness. I'm sorry to break that to you guys, because if you wanted happiness, then the blessing was a wrong path for you. If you wanted happiness, you should go live alone, sleep around, go live in a freaking camper van, travel the world by yourself, sleep around with whoever makes you happy. That's the path that you should have chosen if your priority was happiness and your enjoyment. But I'm here to tell you guys that you're not here for happiness. Is not your priority. Enjoyment is not your priority. Let me know if I'm wrong. You signed up for the blessing, which means your fundamental priority is to grow, to experience the love of God at the deepest level possible, to experience God's heart and love deeper than anyone has ever had the opportunity to in all of history. That's what you signed up for. Is it going to be easy? No one said it was going to be easy. Welcome to being a human. Welcome to marriage. Not easy. I'm not saying that suffering is required in order to experience the blessing, that it's a prerequisite. That's what people get confused about. I'm not saying you have to suffer. You choose your suffering. You suffer on yourself. What I'm saying is that the suffering itself creates the greatest opportunity to love. It's through hard times that give you more chances to love harder. That's the whole point. And if you can love harder, love deeper, your wife, as a man, guess what? That's the blessing. You're doing it. And so for me, one of the fundamental switches I made in my mind when we were struggling, butting heads like crazy, my gosh, we were pregnant with our first child, living in Japan, stressful environment, stressful life. My wife was hormonally a raging monster of hormones, as I call her lovingly, just being edgy and judgy and all the idgies at me. Hardest time of our life, of our blessing, of our marriage. The fundamental turning point when I realized that the point of this blessing is not to be easy. The point is to learn how to love. And so this is okay. It's okay that we're struggling because at the end of the day, we're learning how to love harder, to love bigger, to expand my capacity to love her. And that's the whole point. And as soon as I made that mental shift, it turned a situation which was bad and unpleasant, and this is not how it's supposed to be, to this is exactly how it's supposed to be. I signed up for this. From I didn't sign up for this, this is not what the blessing is, to this is exactly what I signed up for, and this is exactly what the blessing is. How liberating is that? To know that. How much peace of mind it gave me when I realized I wasn't failing as a man, I wasn't failing as a husband, but I was doing exactly the work that was required for us to become the couple we are now, which we don't fight. Here's the thing that people don't get, and I don't know if you believe me, we don't fight anymore. We used to, a lot. Because all the I'm right and you're wrong, we don't fight. We don't. We argue, we have debates, but we don't fight. We don't have anger-filled, rage-filled arguments anymore. Why? Because everything is accepted. Everything is accepted. I accept everything about her. She has accepted everything about me. Everything. Every last thing. All of our flaws, all of our shadows, all of our freaking mistakes, man. We've accepted them. And because we've accepted them, we don't fight anymore. We don't raise our voices at each other. And I can only say that because of the process of just acceptance and realizing that it's through growing through this process that we are becoming more loving. But that could never have happened if I didn't let go of my ego. Everything that you loathe about your wife, everything you want her to change, you can encourage and empower her to change, and you can accept that that's where she is, and it's beautiful. So on the surface, it sounds like overcompensating. And you might see a lot of, I was doing this recently when I was at a workshop, and I was talking about my wife because someone was asking me, and I was talking about these points, like everything I love about her, I used to hate about her, and everything I hated about her, now I absolutely love about her, right? And I always talk about how amazing my wife is. I never complain about her. Never, ever. Always amazing. And then I was doing this, and I was watching myself compliment my wife all the time to these other men, and I was like, am I doing that thing where I'm overcompensating the things I hate about her, right? And I was actually questioning myself. Am I doing that thing that people do where they post about how amazing their husband is online or how much amazing their wife is online? You know, people put on Facebook, Instagram saying, happy birthday to my lovely husband or wife. I can't believe how incredibly lucky I am. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, what's the point of doing that? Just tell them, you know? Or am I overcompensating for things that I hate about my wife, right? By just overcomplimenting her. And I had to take a step back, but I realized that's not what I was doing. What I'm doing in this process is I have put the purpose of my blessing before anything else. I have put love before anything else. I have gone back to the roots of why I received this blessing, and I've brought that back to the forefront of my mind every day, consistently and constantly, so that I can prioritize what truly matters in our relationship and stop letting myself and my ego get in the way. I went back to the roots of what the blessing is fundamentally. It's a man and woman coming together to experience joy through the process of growth and experiencing God, through give and take, through sexual relationship, absolute sex, through having children, through raising those children. Yeah? That is the process through which we will experience God, and as a byproduct, experience fulfillment, joy, true peace and happiness. True happiness, my friend. And if we focus on that, then everything becomes okay. Everything becomes not a problem anymore, but that's how she is. And so I got this message today, like I was saying, and I saw this message from this man who was listing out essentially a list of demands from his wife and saying, oh, she needs to do this. And so he can continue to suffer, which he has for many decades, or he can just say, hey, that's how she is. And that's cool because that's special. There's something special about her being the way she is. And stop comparing. Stop comparing. And so if this brother, you brother, can go through the process of just saying, this is beautiful. She is God's daughter, uniquely made. And if I change anything about her, I will be interrupting God's design. I will be thwarting God's creation because I don't know what's best. You don't know what's best. That is the egoless version of you that you need to track down and find. The version of you that can look at your wife and say, gosh, I don't know what's best for our couple. I don't know what you should or shouldn't do. I'm not right all the time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right and I'm wrong. Maybe there is no right or wrong. Maybe we're just humans that are trying to experience the blessing to the fullest capacity and develop a relationship with God in the process. Maybe all the things that I think are false. Maybe my beliefs are false. Maybe I have such a big ego that I'm causing my own suffering and it's not her. I shared this before, guys. My wife and I went years without having sex. Years. All right? Years. hardest thing for me to deal with as a man, physically not having sex. But interestingly, I felt very close internally with my wife. We were fighting for sure, but there was something about that period of my life that I kind of miss because it forced us to prioritize the internal intimacy, the internal relationship, the spiritual intimacy rather over the external. But the moment that it changed, my friends, because we were living in New Jersey, I was commuting to work in New York every day, or every weekday on a bike, by the way. And my headspace at the time was all focused on making money, investing. How do I get better at cycling? How do I make a difference? That was a big thing for me. How do I impact my work? How do I change the world? And my wife was not getting the love and attention and care that she needed, which is her love language, if those exist. Just like quality time, understanding, empathy, listening, yeah, having quality conversations together. That's her love language. And so when she was suffering and she was so lonely all the time, and we were bickering and fighting, we weren't making love at all, I decided to change something drastically. I decided to move our family to North Carolina, to where I grew up, and that's where my parents live. And so we moved to North Carolina to live a simpler life, and I was willing to accept that. Why? Because I wanted to do it for her and for her happiness. And so what did that communicate to my wife? Is that I care about you more than anything, more than all the things that I'm focused on up here in New York in my head. I don't care about you more. I'm going to put all those away. So interestingly, as soon as we came back to North Carolina, our relationship turned around. We started being more intimate, physically, everything changed. And it was like a miracle. I thought I was dreaming because we hadn't been intimate for years. And then overnight, everything changed. Was it the environment that changed her? No. It was my focus was not on I'm right and you're wrong, but my priority became I don't care about being right anymore. I care about being loving. And I showed that with my word, with my actions. I showed up for her and she received that. It changed everything. And so you can ask yourselves, is there a part of you that's holding on to being right? That's holding on to looking good? That's holding on to status? That's holding on to any type of ego-driven thing? That's your fallen nature. Is there any part of you that's negative? Is there a shadow in your life? Is there something that you are hiding from your spouse? Are you hiding from your wife? Is there a behavior, habit, or thought that you are afraid to tell her? And you tell yourself, well, she doesn't need to know that. But think about it like this. If you're afraid to tell her, that means you're giving power to it and weight to it, which means that it is a shadow because you're making a shadow. And so liberate yourself from yourself and start there. Because without shadows, you can experience gratitude. With shadows, it is very, very difficult to experience true gratitude in your relationship. That's something my wife told me today, by the way, is if people have shadows, they can't experience true gratitude. It's just made up gratitude. It's just words of gratitude. It's like, oh, I'm grateful for the day. It's forced gratitude. But unconditional gratitude is I'm grateful for whatever happens. I'm grateful for you, however you are or aren't. That's true gratitude. That's true acceptance. That is true love. I'm going to give one quote from True Parents and want to thank you guys for listening. Please share this episode with a couple that you know, a man that you know, maybe someone that has a Japanese wife. Think about those folks, and you can let them know, hey, this episode on how to survive a Japanese wife. I don't know if I'll title it that. I hope so. We'll see. Probably not. Okay, let's go. True Parents. I discovered this quote when I was struggling my heart out in our blessing, and it changed my perspective. If a man and a woman want to achieve individual perfection, they need to do so by perfecting their partner, and that is why they must marry. They cannot enter the realm of love if they are not married. The reason people need to marry is so that they can relate to the love of God. A man and woman cannot fully connect to the love of God if they are not married. When they marry, the love of God resides with them, and they become one through this love. God can then bequeath the whole universe to them, including God himself, his love and everything that belongs to him. People marry to perfect their individual love while at the same time perfecting the love of their partner. Doesn't it feel good to know you marry to perfect both your love and the love of God? Men and women have to marry to prepare the foundation on earth through which God can love. The love of God cannot reside there until a man and woman unite together based on the foundation of love. In the final analysis, people marry for the sake of God's love. That is to possess the love of God. And that is from Chun Sung Young, Book 5, Chapter 2.